This is a production of the Washington Village Development Association, WVDA.
A Baltimore City drug dealer lives here in this block. His criminal record is over 70 feet long. Go one block down and another Baltimore City drug dealer lives there. His criminal record is over 30 feet long. Go about a block up in that alley and you'll find where police arrested another drug dealer with a criminal record over 25 feet long. All of these criminals could be in jail, should be in jail, but instead are out on the streets of Baltimore.
The city made it perfectly clear that they were not going to put the bad guys in jail.
Most people expect lawlessness to be stomped out at a certain reasonable level, and I don't think it is stomped out at a reasonable level in Baltimore City.
You shouldn't have to fight for this many years with the law on your side.
For a place you pay for.
To be peaceful in. I mean, to rest in. To come home from work. We both work.
Some of the people who move back to Baltimore, like me, maybe they're a little crazy or something, but they're hardy and they're willing to put up with a lot more things. And when they start leaving, you know something's wrong. You know something's wrong.
You got the Washington Village Association, extremely proactive. I go on YouTube all the time. I watch the videos. I read the newspaper clips. I read the email chains. That down there is an extremely emotional group, which is great. That's what you need because they stir things up. I get the emails, hey, what are you guys doing down here? Well, those guys are shaking us up. They can't do this. They can't do that. You know what? Somebody's paying attention to them. This is what's going on down there. But that's what you need. You need somebody to look at and say, you see what those guys are doing down there? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? But now you got a group of people down there, and I tell you, I salute you for it. I think it's great. I love getting the emails. I love watching the videos. I love listening to the news. I like hearing people bitch about it, But at the same time, don't sit there and tell me, well, you know what, this is what to do. No, you know what? They're doing something. What are you doing? What are you doing? But I got to tell you, it's a proactive group. And I, as a guardian angel, appreciate it.
We clean the streets. We make the 311 calls. We do all the emailing, all the documentation, all the reporting to city officials, all of the attempts to get the community law center, whoever else involved, or Rob DeRocher's office or whoever. The people that we think are the people we're supposed to talk to. We've gone through the runaround. I mean, we're like the parents of the neighborhood. We're trying to put people in bed at night and keep them off the streets, or we're trying to clean up people's trash. I mean, we're going around behind the residents here cleaning up. What else can you do? What else could you do?
Right.
I mean, the videos online, the news reporting. I mean, there's nothing else to do. It's crime summits. We've had grime summits. Supporting our local businesses when we can, joining up with other neighborhoods. We've had some relationships with Morrill Park or with
Camden Crossing.
Yeah, that Berry Circle area or Sowebo or Union Square or whatever. every media person that'll listen to us. I don't know what else to do. I really don't.
So Pigtown John Watch was one of the things that we did that worked really well. And we would just put the license plate numbers and pictures of guys picking up hookers on the web.
WVDA turned its cameras towards hookers working near the intersection of South Carey Street and Washington Boulevard, which quickly chased the hookers out of Pigtown. When the would-be Johns arrived, they were greeted by Pigtown John Watchers and given a flyer warning that tag numbers, video, and other information would be turned over to the police and posted on the internet at www.pigtownjohnwatch.blogspot.com.
It was great. And the Baltimore City Police would send a nasty gram home to the person. So if we found somebody's license plate, we put it on Pigtown John Watch, a nasty gram gets sent home to that person. And you didn't usually see people twice after that. I'm sure there are plenty of divorces happened because of Pigtown John Watch, so I'm pretty proud of that.
WVDA was formed in 2006, but in 2008 we really set ourselves apart when we began to use YouTube to shed light on some of the problems that were taking place in the community.
WVDA investigates.
Are heroin-addicted prostitutes burning down houses in Pigtown? One resident who doesn't want to appear on camera says yes.
I know for a fact, because I just spoke with one of the adult children of the elderly woman who was burned out of her house, that Daniel was the one who said it. Cooking up heroin. Several junkies had been living there. Many of them prostitutes. All the women actually were prostitutes.
Several weeks earlier, a vacant house just 1 block away also caught fire, allegedly by another drug-addicted prostitute cooking up heroin. Residents called 911 repeatedly about 1102 South Carey Street, which was being used by an aggressive 30-something blonde prostitute.
Hooked on fishing, not on drugs!
On June the 13th, 2009, the Washington Village Development Association sponsored the program Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs. For many of the kids you're seeing, this was the first time they were ever given the opportunity to go fishing. WVDA was joined by the Morrow Park Community Association and the Baltimore chapter of the Guardian Angels.
You know, the name of our trip was called Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs. What do you think about that concept?
I think it's very good for us, cause a lot of people on drugs, they started doing drugs when they was young age, but it's good for us cause we ain't doing drugs, that we just wanna have fun.
And fishing could be another way of having fun.
Yes.
And other things, but not drugs.
Yes.
That's great.
You know, people are discouraged with living in the city, and I think it was very disappointing as a city resident and as somebody who studied demographic trends. It was disappointing to me to see the city's population decline in the last decade. I think most people would have thought the city's population would have rebounded in the 2000s. There were a lot of things. People were saying, okay, empty nesters are going to leave the counties and come back to the cities because they want to be close to the cultural amenities, they want to be close to the restaurants. And then people were saying, okay, you know, there's going to be more singles out there and they're going to want to live in the city because they're going to want the nightlife and they're going to want the excitement and the vibrancy of the cities. And then in the first part of the decade, you had the housing boom. And so that made a lot of housing in the county unaffordable to people. So then the theory was, okay, city housing is more affordable, that's going to encourage people to come to the city. So I think people were really thinking that after half a century of population decline, the city was going to rebound between 2000 and 2010. And of course, we know that didn't happen. The city continued to lose population. Nobody with a choice is going to live in a neighborhood where there are open-air drug dealers. And you can argue, and I'm open to both sides of the argument, that we should decriminalize drugs is the way to get rid of people, or you can argue that we need to crack down on drug dealers is the way to get rid of drug dealers. But the point is, you've got to get rid of drug dealers on the corner if you want the neighborhoods to thrive.
Hey, we have an 80-foot criminal record and this guy is still on the street. So the court system is doing a catch and release, catch and release.
It means that drugs essentially are illegal. You know, I think sort of the silver bullet end-all argument in the drug decriminalization issue is that drugs are legal in Baltimore. And people say, no, they're not. If they're illegal, then people would actually have consequences for selling them, and they don't. The reality is, if you're dude on the corner, you're just going to keep doing the same thing you're doing because essentially there are no consequences. Going to jail, you know, for 8 hours at a clip is merely a speed bump. It's an annoyance. It's a cost of doing business, but it's not something that's going to make you want to quit doing what you're doing.
You know, bringing down the homicide rate is critically important. But I think what we've seen is that there's no real relationship to bringing down the homicide rate and increasing population. Because, again, people are not leaving. Yeah, if 5 people are shot on my block and I have the wherewithal to leave, I'm going to move my family out of there in a heartbeat. But if the people aren't shot on my block, but there are break-ins and there are drug dealers, I'm still going to move my family out if I have the opportunity. And that's the problem that the city faces in too many neighborhoods.
They're basically legalizing drugs from the bench, and the problem is with that they were also legalizing violence and threats and incivility. Just a high degree of incivility is what they were protecting.
They threatened my wife. They screamed, you know, profanity at us and threats at us. You know, there was always a threat with whoever was king of the street for this year.
Right.
When Turtle was, he would threaten us. When it was the people from over here, you know, veiled threats sometimes, but sometimes outright. But after years of calling the police and no action, why should they fear?
Right.
You know, why should they fear? Why should anyone fear any consequence when, you know, like Turtle or whoever, you know, or these people or those people or whatever, you call the police.
Nothing
Time after time after time, they come. They basically, hey, you stop doing that. We don't want to deal with a juvenile. We don't want to deal with this minor issue. Or if it does become to a point where we have enough evidence over years of 911 calls and it goes to court and nothing happens anyway.
Right.
You know, why should anyone care?
There's only so many times you can call 911 about the same exact thing and nothing happens.
You know, you see the same bad guys over and over again causing a problem for the neighborhood and nothing happening to them. I think that ultimately was the fatal flaw that did us in. And it made it just an untenable situation. You can't have the same set of deadbeat jerks making life uncomfortable for people that actually have tax-paying jobs. You know, eventually those people are going to go away when they see that, you know, the knuckleheads on the corner aren't going away.
Well, I have to say, it's discouraging. It's discouraging because you've had a variety of strategies in the city. In the 70s and 80s, you had inner harbor redevelopment. We still lost population. In the 90s, you had a national economic boom. We lost population. In 2000, as I said, you had, you know, the theory that empty nesters would be moving into the city, and you had the city being relatively more affordable than the county, and that was supposed to increase population.
When the weather started getting nice and it started getting crowded on the street, the drugs started getting slung, and the noise level went up, and the profanity all night long went up. The beginning of every spring, summer, I would go down to the Southern District with my little documentations of all the emails I ever sent and all, and they would always put me through to whoever was the guy at the time. Right. Whoever's your community outreach person or whoever. And I'd have this manila envelope and here's all my stuff and let's nip this in the bud this year. You know, maybe we can get some more action. They'd say, oh, I know, that 1100 block of Carroll Street's terrible. And I mean, that was it. I was like, oh, well, thanks for noticing.
On Sunday, March the 23rd, 2011, a suspect allegedly used a handgun to carjack yet another victim of violence in Baltimore City. The carjacking took place here in the 1200 block of West Cross Street. We believe this act of violence would have been avoided if officials had listened to WVDA just once in the past several years about this house and the 1100 block of Carroll Street. Residents began complaining about this nuisance property and its tenants in 2007.
These neighbors are doing something not everyone is happy about.
You the police neighbor, yo!
On June the 3rd, 2009, a gunman shot two black males ages 15 and 16 non-fatally at this location. After the shooting, WVDA reached out to the Community Law Center to file a nuisance abatement case against this house and its tenants. We hope the city's nuisance abatement laws will be used to evict those causing trouble in the community.
We caught this confrontation with our camera as they walked up on a juvenile they say has been causing problems in the neighborhood.
On June the 20th, 2009, WVDA held a fundraiser and gave the Community Law Center all the money raised from the event.
WVDA met with the Community Law Center to discuss nuisance abatement housing and solutions to making our community a safer and better place to live.
Almost 2 years later, the same people live in the same house and are doing the same things. The Community Law Center's efforts changed nothing.
Communities have a right to live, they have a right to have a neighborhood that is just not being completely dominated by the drug traffic in one particular property. Now that we know that a court is willing to do this, then we're certainly, it's an option for us. Communities have a right to live, they have a right to have a neighborhood that is just not being completely dominated by the drug traffic in one particular property.
On June the 17th, 2009, Channel 2 News interviewed WVDA about the improvements taking place in Pigtown. During the interview, the suspect of the recent carjacking threatened to murder WVDA Vice President Sebastian Sassy.
I catch you slipping, you dead, yo.
Channel 2 broadcast the threat on the evening news, and the city did nothing. Following the broadcast, WVDA's Vice President Sebastian Sassy filed charges against the suspect with juvenile authorities. The suspect of the recent carjacking appeared before Judge Althea Handy 3 times, and Judge Handy did nothing. The nuisance tenants at this house on Carroll Street crossed paths with Baltimore County only once. Baltimore County indicted, prosecuted, and incarcerated one of those causing the alleged crimes which flow out of this house. Meanwhile, Baltimore City did nothing after 2 teenagers were shot at this location. The Community Law Center's efforts changed nothing. Judge Althea Handy did nothing after the suspect of the recent carjacking threatened to kill a community activist on the evening news.
I catch you slipping, you dead, yo.
City prosecutors and judges did nothing after suspected drugs were found in the house numerous times. We believe if the full weight of those laws would have been brought to bear against this property, the recent carjacking of March the 23rd would have never occurred. We're also warning city leaders, if nuisance properties like this one are allowed to fester for years, the city's population and tax base will continue to decline as city residents continue to leave the city for the safety of the surrounding counties.
Residency is just, I think it's just an issue that speaks loud and clear about what's going on in Baltimore City. We have regular people, regular citizens who were told, stick around, pay the high property taxes, deal with the crime, be active. And then the leaders, some of our elected officials completely lie and play games about their residency and live in other counties and then make huge salaries off of the people that they try to keep here.
Baltimore City Councilwoman is facing critics who believe she may actually live in Baltimore County.
And Conaway is the third council person to have to answer questions about residency. The others are Council President Jack Young and 5th District Councilwoman Ricky Spector.
I was very interested in this residency issue because of the Jack Young thing, because of the Ricky Spector thing, and because of things I've heard about other city council members. I mean, these are not the, I mean, there's suspicions for other city council, about other city council members. And I was looking into a city council member, and I was running by this person's house. I was looking on the internet, and I couldn't find definitive proof. I couldn't find, you know, the spark, the obvious thing, like this person doesn't live where they're supposed to live. So I tried one more thing on the internet. I typed their name into this one website, and I couldn't get any proof. And so then I just looked at the list of city council people, and I typed in Belinda Conway's name. And literally within 1 second, I had everything I needed to prove that she did not live in the city. Because it said she, on the SStat, that she lived in Randallstown. That was her primary residence. If you say that's your primary residence, it's your primary residence. She received a homestead property tax credit in Randallstown. So she is telling the government on the legal document that she lives in Randallstown. So I simply only repeated what she had basically written on a legal document. And that, you know, she received a homestead property tax credit in Randallstown, which means you live in Randallstown. And you can't live, Randallstown is not Baltimore City for all the people, that's Baltimore County. And this little story on my blog came out, it made some news, the mainstream media, maybe CBS, Channel 11 covered it a little bit. But you know, I thought that was a huge story. And sadly, it wasn't really covered that much. You know, finding out that a city councilwoman, a two-term city councilwoman, says on legal documents that she lives in Randallstown, I thought that's a big thing. It speaks loud and clear about the situation. 30,000 people leave Baltimore in a decade, and so apparently so do our elected officials. But it didn't make the news until, for some odd reason, and I believe it was to try to intimidate me, but it was a horrible miscalculation. She sued me for $21 million because I wrote the story. And that is when it did become a big story because of this ridiculous lawsuit. And eventually she had to give up on the law. She dismissed the lawsuit. And but that became a huge part of the campaign. She had to, people knew about it. I think 50% of all city workers live outside the city, or 48%, I don't know. So many people live outside the city and make large amounts of money for working for city government, and some of them do hardly anything. So I would think plenty of judges live outside the city. I would suspect, I mean, some have to. O'Malley's wife is a judge. Isn't the Governor O'Malley's wife a judge? She lives in Annapolis with her governor husband. I mean, that's an issue too. I mean, the worst offenders again are our elected officials. If they live outside the city, that means they're lying, and that is just not cool at all.
You shouldn't have to fight for this many years with the law on your side.
For a place you pay for.
To be peaceful in. I mean, to rest in. To come home from work. We both work.
The city made it perfectly clear that they were not going to put the bad guys in jail. And, you know, the guy lived 2 doors down from me. Born in 1979, a few years younger than me. Guy had something like 25 or 30 arrests in his adult life. Who knows what his juvenile record looks like because they're sealed, but we do know that his adult record was a mile long. Violent crimes, guns, knives, drugs, robbery, drug dealing. This knucklehead at 11:30 at night would be yelling and screaming, and I don't quite understand this concept, but people would have conversations at 95 decibels to people standing 10 feet away from them. I guess because they're shouting over the sound of the music that they're blaring from a stereo. At 11:30 at night on a Tuesday night, they're blasting it out. You know, 2-year-old kids in shitty-filled diapers wandering barefoot down the street while people are smoking joints on the stoop. And I gotta work tomorrow. You're living around that environment. That knucklehead keeps getting arrested over and over and over again. He's living in a Section 8 house that he's not even on the lease on. His girlfriend, his baby mama, is living in the house, renting it from Section 8. why would somebody want to live next to that? Why? Certainly I'm not going to put my wife through that. So it was time to leave, and the city had made it abundantly clear they valued him more than they valued me. That's the bottom line. So I took my tax dollars somewhere else.
Everyone has a boiling point. There's little gnawing little things. And I really think some of the people who move back to Baltimore, like me, maybe they're a little crazy or something, but they're hardy and they're willing to put up with a lot more things. And when they start leaving, you know something's wrong. You know something's wrong.
And where are you going to move to?
Somewhere else. I mean, surrounding counties. I'll work here. They may eventually commuter tax me, but at least when I go home, I'm not going to be embarrassed about it. You know, at least when I can have my parents come visit me and they're not concerned for my safety of my family. So, you know, somebody else will get our tax money.
Now you've got 600,000 people living in Baltimore. Your tax base is eroded. You can't pay for the basic civil services you need to make the place be livable.
You've got a budget of X dollars that's based on, you know, X amount of people living here. The population goes down a little bit. You're not going to be able to get, and then the values of the houses have gone down in recent years. You're not going to be able to get as much money from that base to fund your programs. And of course, there's no budgetary plan. I mean, it's very irresponsible the way they plan these budgets. They base it almost on like best case scenarios. So there's a shortfall. So we're in a constant state of shortfalls because we don't have enough money for the programs that we have planned.
I don't mind paying if I get worthwhile service for paying it.
Right.
I don't.
But when you're not getting what you think you deserve for the money that you're paying out.
I mean, how many years in a row should we do that? I mean, it's kind of silly. We're suckers, right? You keep paying and paying and you don't get the stuff out of it.
You pay a large amount of taxes and there's trash everywhere. There's
that we clean up.
Yeah.
That we've cleaned up for years. You know, the 311 calls that we have to make over and over and call in for confirmation numbers and track them online.
And not see services done.
Or collecting all the data on these cases, basically giving away a slam dunk case to somebody who'd want to take it and not getting it taken care of.
I lay most of the blame for why the bad people didn't go away at the foot of the judicial system.
Some of the judges have lost touch with reality, probably. They don't live amongst some of the anarchy that's out there. You know, they don't live in Reservoir Hill or Pigtown or Sandtown, or who knows? I don't know where they live.
You know, releasing these guys with nothing back into the neighborhoods is killing neighborhoods.
Although you really want improvements in crime and you want improvements in schools for the people who are here, when people choose where to live, they don't think, gee, Baltimore's crime rate is declining. They think, where am I going to be safer? In Baltimore City or in Baltimore County or Anne Arundel County or Harford County or Howard County or Carroll County? So the city's in a competitive position when it comes to attracting residents, and the city is still falling short.
If you do the crime, you're not going to get the time, basically. So that's the situation that we're in right here in Baltimore City.
The things that come along with the black market are really, really negative, and they tend to scare middle-class people away, and you really can't blame them, I don't think. So the gunshots and the drug debris lying in the gutter, those are all things that middle-class people that pay taxes and have professional jobs, those aren't things that they want to have around. And when they see that the people that are creating this problem, the people that are benefiting from the black market, aren't being punished, and they see the same faces over and over and over again, how many times can you tell a teacher who lives on Wyeth Street that the guy who sells drugs on the corner of Sterrett and Wyeth, who has threatened to kill her because he thinks she has called 911, how many times can you tell that lady when she sees said drug dealer get arrested, go to jail for a week, come back, get arrested, go to jail for 2 weeks, come back, over and over and over again. There's only so many times you can tell that teacher that, hey, you know what, you should stay here and keep risking your life and letting that guy get in your face. And when you realize that you could also, for $200,000, have a nice house out in Frederick or here in the Eastern Shore of Maryland, it's real difficult to get people to want to stay bought in. So I think at some point, the lack of the judicial system's commitment to getting the bad guys, at least in our neighborhood, to go away became a real drag.
You know, during my years living here, I've seen this revolving door and the lack of punishment, and for some pretty scary things. I mean, just because a life is a life. If a drug dealer kills another drug dealer, and they only get 20 years for taking another man's life or something like that, that's scary. I mean, I don't care if the other dude was a bad dude. I mean, you still killed someone. You're kind of a dangerous individual. I mean, it's gotten to the point of some, I mean, I don't have exact examples, but it's scary when you think about people who commit seriously violent crimes are walking the streets and attempt to either, partake in other serious violent crimes or petty crimes.
How many shootings this year?
Well, it's like we seem to be the epicenter. Like if you took all the violent crimes that happened since January of 2011, stabbings and shootings, they're all within a 1-block radius of our house, because they're at the end of the block that side or the end of the block this way, right? Basically.
This is a problem. People think that what they're supposed to do is deal drugs, or they think what they're supposed to do is be uncivil towards your neighbors. If what you think is what you're supposed to do is embrace and continue to spread thug culture, if that's what you think you're supposed to do, and you see there are no consequences for doing that, then why would you stop? So that is a real problem. So the judges have a real the judicial system really has a lot to account for here.
I think police get frustrated probably with that too, seeing the same guys over and over again.
That could have been ended if at least one main player or 2 main players would have been in jail at the same time with the same stuff that they got picked up on time and time again here.
Boy, if there's one set of people that really have a lot of mud on their face, I think it's definitely got to be the judges that kept cutting these people loose.
At least I would have had faith that we could have had action against anyone new who came in. I think at least I wouldn't feel this sense of despair and frustration and complete pessimism.
Someone is backing you. Someone is backing all the hard work that we're putting into trying to make this town, this area better.
You're taking a picture of it?
Yep. We put videos on YouTube if you want to watch. Can you see it?
Yes.
How's it look?
Good. That look clear.
Yeah.
Want me to go
it's
help
HD.
him?
Yeah, go ahead and help him get in the picture.
Show me a man without a dream, and I'll show you a man that's dead, real dead. Once I had me a dream, but that dream got kicked in the head. Dream dead. Some judges apt to say, I'm putting you away for